Discovered my wife's 2-year affair on her phone while fixing it. After she confessed, her lies continued unraveling beneath our chaotic family life. I'm a stay-at-home dad with 3 kids, one of whom has special needs. The last couple of years have felt like an endless struggle, juggling all the responsibilities of parenthood, especially with one child who has cerebral palsy. I'm the one up early, packing breakfasts and lunches, handling the school runs, and coordinating therapy appointments. My wife and I agreed early on, she'd focus on her career and provide for us financially, I'd manage the home. About 2 years ago, my wife joined a gym. That's when she met John. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but soon their Facebook conversations became a regular thing. I noticed my wife would go out of her way to hide these messages, deleting threads, lying about what they discussed, and even whether she spoke to him at all. It set off alarm bells in my head. We had talked through every aspect of our lives and family, but this was something new, something secret. Around the same time, she decided to get a breast augmentation and a tummy tuck. She told me it was just her attempt to shed her mom body, but the way she went about it, the secrecy, the timing, felt suspicious. She'd lose herself at the gym for hours, sometimes 3 or 4 at a stretch, before work, on days off, whenever she could. Meanwhile, I felt more and more like a single parent, carrying the weight of our family alone. Things started spiraling. I felt abandoned, left behind, while she was building a life outside our home. Tensions built up and eventually she even took her rings off last summer without telling me. She claimed we were separated, but never once did we sit down together to define what that meant. We were in a slump, watching our marriage unravel in silence. Despite everything, my doubts about her relationship with John never faded. Sometimes things seemed to ease off between us, but the anxiety always lurked. We tried to set boundaries. I asked her to block him and only allow conversations at the gym, nowhere else. This June, life as I knew it changed. I was fixing her phone and stumbled onto a thread with a random number. That was no random number, it was John. I scrolled through message after message, and it was all there, the proof that my wife and this married man had been carrying on an affair for over 2 years. My suspicions were confirmed. I lost it. The ground dropped out from under me. She tried to downplay it, insisting they'd only held hands and hugged. No physical affair, she swore. I wanted to believe her, because for some twisted reason, an emotional affair seemed easier to forgive. Over time, I somehow managed to accept that version and told her I could forgive her. We recommitted, she even became more honest, answering my questions directly. For a while, things felt better, or at least normal again. But normal was a lie. The day after our anniversary, she shattered me once more. She admitted the affair had been physical. They'd had sex, who knows how many times, and always in his car while she was at work. She claimed they always used protection, as if that would soothe anything. I was floored. I'd already mourned the loss of our relationship, but this was a fresh wound. Worse, she admitted she'd lied about it all. She hid the truth so fluidly, it made me question everything I thought I knew. She said the last time they had sex was April, but at this point how could I possibly believe her? I asked the only question that made sense. Why not just divorce me if she was so unhappy? She said she never wanted to hurt our family, that she cares deeply for us and the kids. That didn't square with her actions. The reality that she was sleeping with both me and him, without telling me, left me feeling sick. Writing this tears open the wound all over again. I feel betrayed, confused, and shattered. She's now expressing remorse and wants to make things work, but I don't know what to think. I got myself tested for STDs today. My whole world has been turned upside down, and I don't know where to go from here. Update 1. Life has truly been a whirlwind of emotion since everything came crashing down. For everyone who's given me encouragement and advice, I can't express how much I appreciate it. As soon as everything blew up, we jumped right into counseling, pretty much ASAP, which, honestly, has been a somewhat positive experience for both of us, though maybe I just need an outlet right now because today I'm really feeling it. Day to day, things just sort of are. Some days feel more hopeful than others, but we're both pretty committed to making this work, at least for now. Our main motivation, outside of our marriage itself, is, of course, our kids, especially our son. Therapy sessions tend to focus on our communication and on finding a way forward, but it's hard not to want to vent, to seek out validation for the frustrations I feel about how things unfolded. I know she's entitled to her own feelings about how I handled her friendship with him in the first place. She still swears it was merely friendly in the beginning, but deep down, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being gaslit, by her, and maybe even a little by our therapist. It's not like I ever had a problem with her having male friends. Even when things between us were rough, I know I made my boundary extremely clear. Back when they were just friends, she used to message him all the time, and their conversations went into territory that felt way past where friends should go. Yet she insists they were innocent. Looking back, though, I've realized I'm not comfortable with her having friends like that again. I've told her as much. There's this knot of resentment building in me, because now I feel like I'm the one doing all the giving, even though she's the one who crossed the line and decided to pursue something with another man. She says she didn't feel safe in our marriage, that's why she pursued that relationship. There's so much conflict swirling in me when I hear that. I want to rebuild trust in her, I want to feel safe again. More than that, though, I want all of this to be about her choices, her character flaw, not some sort of reaction to how she felt treated by me. I get that she says she felt unsafe, frustrated, unloved. I'm not saying her feelings aren't real, but every time she trots them out as her reason, it feels like an excuse. I can't help but think, things were rocky, yes, but not shattered before her dynamic with this guy started. It feels more and more incorrect when she claims it all went downhill before I even saw trouble. And since that moment, the moment I realized she was lying about how much they communicated, I haven't been able to look at her, or our marriage, the same way. I know I've been short with her, can you blame me? She kept lying, making it seem like that level of communication with a friend was normal. I feel crazy for even doubting my own instincts some days. Some nights, we end in fights, mostly about my tone or my reactions. It feels like a broken record, she's always criticizing how I communicate, with her and with the kids. It never seems to end. She cycles back to this again and again as justification for why she stepped back from our marriage. But then, once in a while, things settle more peacefully, almost calmly, and I get this flicker of hope. Right now, I just feel fucking worthless. That's what drove me to spill this out tonight. I feel absolutely unfit and unworthy. I let my wife walk all over me, and she still manages to make me feel like her betrayal is actually my fault. Our therapist almost sides with her sometimes, like I need to examine my flaws, how I shaped the events that happened. Maybe they're right, maybe there's truth in that. I am noticeably anxious, constantly on edge about everything my wife does, and I can't see that changing. I'll always worry about who she's talking to, about how honest she's really being. She says she's committed to us now, but it feels empty somehow, a line she could have pulled out on our wedding day, but here we are, standing in the mess. I wish I had something better to report, some breakthrough, some glimmer of resolution, but all I have is this emptiness. Maybe that's my update. Update 2. I woke up to a text from an unknown number at 5:48 a.m. that said, "I'm John's wife. I think we need to talk." I stared at it for a long minute because it felt like the universe reaching down and pinching the back of my neck. We met that afternoon in the parking lot of a coffee shop I never go to. She looked like I feel most days, sleep deprived and running on fumes. She didn't come to scream at me or trade war stories. She came with a manila envelope and a quiet apology for what I was about to see. She had phone logs from their plan, screenshots, dates, and places. Life 360 pings. A copy of a motel receipt with my wife's initials from a random Tuesday lunch hour. The same random number I'd found on my wife's phone turned out to be a Google Voice line. There were gym day meetups that bled into work breaks, parks and quiet side streets. Not just his car. Not just once without protection. Not just April. I took the envelope and held it like it was hot, because it felt like it might scorch straight through to bone. On the drive home, my lab results dropped into my email. Positive for chlamydia. The steering wheel went slippery in my hands. I pulled over and just let the engine idle while the world tilted. It wasn't surprise, more like a confirmation stamped across my chest in red ink. I got the antibiotics and walked into the house with the paper bag from the pharmacy feeling like it weighed 50 pounds. She was at the counter making spaghetti like it was any other night. I put the envelope and the pills down next to the cutting board. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't say much of anything. I watched her face as she looked at the top page and then the second and the third. You can tell the exact second someone realizes the version they rehearsed won't hold. She tried the soft shoe, "I was going to tell you, and it wasn't like that," and then the air just went out of her. Everything I pointed to, she finally stopped arguing with. No, it wasn't always the car. No, it wasn't always protected. No, April wasn't the last time. She said it like a confession and a plea got tangled up in her throat. I told her she needed to get tested immediately. She did. I told her she needed to pack a bag and give the house, and our kids, space to breathe. She cried quietly and packed. I sat on the floor in our son's room while he fell asleep and listened to the slow rhythm of his breath through the monitor. The house sounded different with one less person in it. Quieter, but not calmer. Like the quiet after a storm when you're still waiting to hear if the roof held. We told the kids the next morning before school drop-off that Mom was staying with her sister for a little while because we're trying to be kind to each other and work some things out. Our oldest stared at his backpack straps and said nothing. Our middle asked if it was because she forgot to do the dishes after dinner. I said it wasn't anyone's fault but ours, and I hated the word ours in my mouth for the first time in my life. Our youngest didn't understand it the same way, just clung to her and then to me and then to her again. I felt like a terrible magician, palming the truth and pulling out a handkerchief instead. I fired our therapist after a session where she told me, in so many words, that affairs don't happen in a vacuum. Maybe that's true. It landed in me like a shove. I set up individual therapy for myself with someone who specializes in betrayal, and we found a new couples therapist who said the word safety and meant it both ways, not just as a shield for whoever did the wounding. I asked for a full written timeline and a polygraph to verify it, not because I want to play detective forever, but because I am done building trust on wet sand. The test is scheduled for next week. She didn't argue this time, she just wrote. 2 days later, she called me from work. HR had gotten an anonymous email with attachments. She was being placed on leave pending an investigation into conduct on company time and misuse of company resources. My stomach dropped because the math of our life is not subtle. Mortgage, therapy, groceries, meds, gas. Being a one-income family was our deal, and I can't pretend I didn't feel both fury and grief rise at the same time. Fury that she lit a match near our finances, grief that this is how it's going to blow back on all of us. I didn't tell her it would be okay. I told her I would take care of the kids and she should tell me what time she'd be back to pick up her toiletries. John's wife texted me later that she had sent the same email to John's HR. I sat at the kitchen island with that manila envelope and our family calendar open, laying their timeline over hours. Speech therapy at 1 p.m., quick workout at 3:30 p.m., dinner plan scrawled in blue Sharpie, a motel charge that looks like a paper cut until you realize how deep it goes. It's not the big things that hurt the most sometimes. It's the Tuesdayness of it all. He tried to call me that night. I watched his name, first name only, like a stain, light up and go dark, light up and go dark. I didn't answer. I don't want anything from him that I can't get from his absence. The antibiotics made me feel like I had swallowed a handful of nails. I took them anyway and kept moving. I scrubbed the stove and folded laundry at midnight because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. The next morning, my wife dropped off a textbook of a timeline, handwritten, pages and pages. Dates, times, places, fights we had the night before something happened, the way she says she felt small and then felt wanted and then felt nothing. I read it once and then again. I circled a date and asked her, "Were you with him the night you took your rings off?" She nodded. I didn't throw anything. I just went out to the garage and stood there long enough for the sensor light to give up on me. I don't know where this goes. I know she's not home right now. I know the kids are sleeping in rooms that still smell like their shampoo. I know we have a test next week and a therapist who at least seems interested in the truth, not a tidy story. I know the envelope is still on the counter, and I'm resisting the urge to turn it into confetti. I know I feel both hollowed out and strangely steady, like I finally stopped arguing with the reality of my life and started living in it. Update 3. The polygraph office looked like a dentist who had given up, faded carpet, a ficus with one brave new leaf, a bowl of wintergreen mints. The examiner was an old Marine with a steady voice who said yes or no only like he was handing out commandments. Wires, sensors, a blood pressure cuff. She sat with her shoulders square like a student taking a test. I sat in the hallway with vending machine coffee and my calendar open to next week's therapy slots. The hum of the AC was the loudest thing in the world. He didn't make a show of it. He walked us through the chart without looking either of us in the eyes. Deception indicated on continued contact after disclosure. Deception indicated on last time. No deception on any other partners. His hands moved like he was smoothing a tablecloth that was already flat. "We'd get the written report in 24 hours, he said. He took the sensors off like he was unhooking her from a dream. In the car, she stared out the windshield and said, "I saw him one more time." Church parking lot. 6 in the morning. She said it like a weather report. A goodbye that kept not ending. Hugging, kissing, no sex, she said. I watched the light change from red to green to red again. I didn't ask why they picked a church. I didn't say anything about the graph. The truth was already louder than whatever she'd say next. She lost her job 2 days later. Zoom call, HR guy in a polo, another person in a small square with their camera off. Words like policy and conduct and trust. No severance. Insurance through the end of the month. She mouthed "I'm sorry" at the camera after they disconnected like she thought the internet worked on grace. I pulled up the portal for our son's Medicaid waiver application and started a stack: birth certificate, therapy notes, physician letters. The scanner's green light passed slowly back and forth, like a tiny lighthouse trying to find us. The school called. Our oldest slammed his hand into a locker and then cried in the bathroom and told the counselor he felt like he was made of glass. I sat on a tiny chair and tried to explain a thing with no clean edges. He didn't ask if she cheated. He asked if we were still a family. I told him yes, because that was the only answer that didn't make me swallow my own tongue. He nodded like an old man and put his forehead against my shoulder in a way he hasn't done since 2nd grade. John's wife sent me a screenshot of his profile on a dating app, the kind with prompts about your favorite sandwich. He'd used a gym selfie from last year and wrote new to this. She added, simply, "Of course he is." She also told me he'd moved into an extended stay by the highway. I drove past it on the way to pick up antibiotics for an ear infection and didn't feel a thing. Beige buildings, a half-lit sign, a man in a reflective vest walking his dog. Life goes on in the ugliest places. Our new couples therapist asked if we were ready to set conditions of safety. I said yes. She said yes. No contact letter drafted and sent while I watched her type it. New phone number, location sharing on, not because I'm her warden, because I'm done living in weather reports. She handed me her phones like a person puts out both hands when the cop asks if there's anything sharp on you. The letter went unanswered, at least to me. The graph in my head flattened for the first time in months. I met with a lawyer in an office that smelled like toner and lemon cleaner. He kept a tiny sandbox on a table with a rake in it, so people could draw lines and erase them. He said words I had been avoiding: legal separation, temporary orders, exclusive use of the residence, parenting plan. I signed where he pointed. The clerk at the courthouse stamped the top page with a sound like a gavel through a pillow. I walked back to the car and realized I'd been holding my breath for a week. That night, on FaceTime, she cried at the camera from her sister's guest room and said she was applying to anything that would take her, that she'd drive a delivery route, stock, shelves, whatever, plug the hole she'd cut. I believed her in the way you believe someone saying they're going to learn a language at 40. The kids brushed their teeth to a song about frogs and spit into a sink with a toothpaste constellation. Our youngest asked if Mama could sing the bedtime song through the phone. She did, and I stood in the hall and held the doorframe like it was going to bolt. The report arrived the next morning. Same words, this time in Times New Roman, cool and official. Deception indicated. The date of the church lot spelled out. The way it felt to read it was less like being stabbed and more like finally finding the splinter that's been in your foot and pressing until it comes free. She didn't argue. She said, I know what I did, and sat on the stoop and picked at a peeling strip of paint until it came loose like a scab. She asked if we were done. I told her I was done pretending I could live without a floor. I moved our wedding photo from the hallway into a drawer with extra chargers and the instruction manual for the blender. I left the kids' drawings up, the lopsided house, the stick figure dog with 6 legs, the sun with eyelashes. I put my ring in the ceramic bowl by the door with screws and a Canadian quarter that keeps showing up in the change. The manila envelope is still on the counter, thicker now, with the polygraph report tucked on top and a copy of the filed orders clipped to the back. It looks like homework I didn't ask for. There's a meeting with the judge next week for temporary custody and who sleeps where on what nights. There's therapy. There's paperwork. There are peanut butter sandwiches cut into triangles because squares make our middle cry lately. There's a no-contact letter sitting in someone's inbox like a stone. There's the quiet of the house at 11:13 p.m. and the knowledge that in the morning someone will ask me where the orange scissors went and I will know. I don't know if we make it. I know the roof held. I know the storm isn't over. I know I am finally inside my own life. Update 4. The judge's courtroom had tired flags and a clock that ran 5 minutes fast. We stood on opposite sides of a wooden table that smelled like lemon oil and old arguments. My lawyer did most of the talking. Hers folded her hands and nodded at the phrase best interests. The judge spoke softly, like he was narrating a nature documentary about people who forget their animals. Exclusive use of the house to me for now. A parenting schedule that fits around school and therapy, with a midweek dinner and alternate weekends. Communication through an app that timestamps our sentences and turns everything we say into exhibits. No third-party introductions. No overnights with anyone new. He rapped his knuckles on the bench once when we both started to talk at the same time. The order slid across to us on copy paper that still felt warm. Outside, the air tasted like metal rain. She showed up that night with a duffel and a plastic bin with the kids' winter boots because they'll grow out of them while we argue. The app chimes when she sends a message, a little bell that makes my stomach drop and then climb back up. I'm at the curb. I'll be 5 minutes late. Tell him I found the blue hoodie. We sound like colleagues in the world's saddest office. 2 days later there was a knock I felt in my teeth. The woman at the door had a badge on a lanyard and a bag with a clipboard sticking up like a fin. We received a report. She said it the way meteorologists say cell developing. She asked to see where the kids sleep. She asked about meds and spills and discipline and what Tuesday looks like at our house. She looked in the fridge and at the locked cabinet and asked me to open it so she could see the bottles. I showed her our son's gait trainer and the way the straps go, the chart the PT laminated, the calendar with speech circled in highlighter. She talked to the kids in the living room while I refolded towels I had already folded. Our middle tugged at his shirt and asked if he was in trouble for the time he used all the band-aids. Our oldest sat on his hands and said, "We're okay here," like a password. The littlest showed her the drawer where the forks live because that's her new trick. The report came in the mail a week later on paper with a watermark I held up to the window. Unfounded. The envelope went into the stack. My jaw unclenched for the first time in 12 days. I told her about the visit on the app. She called me from her sister's porch with wind in the phone and said the word wow in a way that rained guilt on both of us. John's wife texted me separately, swore on her sons that it wasn't her. I believed her before she finished the sentence. The anonymous universe has his face. The no contact held until it didn't. She sent me a screenshot right away, an unknown number that was a little too familiar in shape, a string of digits made to forget. "Can we talk?" All lowercase like someone whispering. A voicemail followed, his breathing disguised as contrition. She forwarded it to me and then to the therapist and then blocked it while I watched the dots move. The therapist's face on the screen didn't change. "That's a violation," she said, like she was calling a foul. We filed a police report that reads like a grocery list: date, time, unknown number, prior letter. An officer with traffic cone hair wrote down everything carefully and gave me a card with a case number. It sat next to the manila envelope and made new corners. Money is math and panic. She got hired at a warehouse an hour away, nights, fluorescent vest and steel-toe boots. She sent a photo of her hands in the break room with a paper cup of coffee, no caption. On her nights, I sleep like a person hiding in the wrong body. On mine, she picks them up for dinner and a movie at her sister's and returns them smelling like popcorn and detergent. The oldest buckles the littlest into her car seat with the practiced gentleness of someone rebuilding a bridge one plank at a time. Our middle came back on Wednesday with a sticker that said I voted because the clerk at the grocery store let him press the button for apples. He wore it to bed. The Medicaid waiver came through on a Thursday afternoon with an email that used the word approved in a sentence that didn't ask anything of me. 12 hours of respite. A woman named Rosa knocked 2 days later with a smile you could put your head against. She sat on the floor with our son and built a tower out of soft blocks and let him knock it over 100 times. Real help moves differently through a room. I got in my car without a destination and ended up in a parking lot across from the river, seat all the way back, my hands folded on my chest like someone had told me to keep still. I set a timer for 40 minutes and slept so hard I woke up with a crease from the seat belt on my cheek, proof that my face still makes marks. John's wife filed her petition. She sent me the first page because I asked, names reduced to petitioner and respondent like we were talking about elements instead of people. He wrote in his response that he was seeking growth. There was a piece of motel receipt paper folded inside the envelope when it arrived at her house. He's bad at letting go of objects, she said in a text that almost made me laugh. Almost. The judge's temporary order taught us to use the app like field medics. Pickups happen at the park by the library because it's neutral and has a swing our littlest calls the rocket. We shake hands instead of hugging out of muscle memory and order. Our oldest asked if he could bring the dog on exchange days so there's always someone happy to see everyone. The dog took the suggestion personally and now waits by the door on Wednesdays with his leash in his mouth like a flag. We had a disclosure session in the couple's therapist's room, her reading from a stack of pages with her mouth against the letters to keep them steady. There were dates and feelings and apologies that sounded like square pegs trying to figure out round holes. I focused on a dark spot on the carpet shaped like Florida and let the words move past me like radio static you choose not to tune. When she finished, I handed her a sheet of paper of my own with conditions that had actually been orders, and internal stuff that had no judge. I said I needed accountability that wasn't just a word. She said okay without bargaining, and that threw me more than any blow-up ever has. Change doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it arrives in 2 syllables and a pen cap between someone's teeth. The kids' school called again, but this time it was to tell me our oldest stood up in English and read a poem he wrote about a house with 3 windows and a door that's always unlocked from the inside. The teacher said he cried and then he didn't, and everyone clapped because junior high is kinder than the internet will tell you. I sold the camping tent on Marketplace to a man who wanted a place to take his boys fishing. He counted out 20s on the hood of his car and told me his wife left last fall, like it's a thing people are practicing in groups now. I handed him the bag with the stakes rolled tight in the side pocket and said, the poles go in from the opposite corners, and he nodded like I'd given him the secret to fatherhood. It felt good to point at something and know where it fit. The manila envelope is now a file box with a handle. The CPS letter sits on top of the polygraph report and the temporary orders and 2 copies of the no contact and the officer's card. Underneath, there's the kids' school photo packets and the receipt for baseball cleats and a drawing our middle did of a dinosaur with a heart on its stomach. I could put it all in a drawer, but I like the weight of it where I can see it. Maybe that's petty. Maybe it's ballast. Last night a storm finally came in real, rattling the windows and sending the dog under my knees. I watched the ceiling like it might confess. The roof held. It's not lost on me that a lot of things didn't. This morning, the sun came up on the kind of clean you only get after the sky does the work for you. The mailbox held a letter from the court stamped final hearing scheduled in a font that always looks a little too cheerful. I put it on the counter by the scissors. I made 3 lunches and cut 1 sandwich into triangles and 1 into squares and 1 into a shape that was supposed to be a heart. I pressed them into bags and wrote names in Sharpie that bled just enough to prove their hours. I don't know if we make it. I know the app will chime at 5:12 p.m. with a sentence that fits into a box. I know Rosa will be here at 3 with a tower of blocks. I know I will mop the kitchen and the water in the bucket will go gray and then clear. I know that when the door opens at 7:30, the dog will lose his mind politely and the house will fill with shoes thudding the mat and talking over each other and the kind of noise you can sleep to. I know I'm still here. I know that matters. Update 5. A man in a windbreaker said my name like a question and handed me a thick envelope that thunked when it hit my palm. Subpoena. Deposition in John's divorce. The date circled itself on my calendar like it knew how. The conference room had carpet the color of damp oatmeal and a bowl of peppermint sweating under the fluorescent lights. The court reporter wore headphones and nails the color of pink seashells and took an oath out of both of us with the same steady cadence. John sat across from me in a shirt with a collar that had given up. He looked smaller than the version of him my brain had been fighting with. His wife sat to my left with a legal pad and the kind of pen people give you when you sign mortgages. I kept my answers short, the way the old Marine at the polygraph prescribed, yes and no with a few dates stitched in so the fabric held. Exhibits were slid to me on thin paper, stamps of time, map dots, a receipt that has lived in 3 different envelopes and still had ink brave enough to be read. John's attorney objected to the shape of questions and not their bones. We broke once for 10 minutes and I stood at the window and looked at a parking garage like it was going to wave back. On the way out, he stepped into my path as if the hallway belonged to him by seniority and said, I never meant, and I angled my body toward the elevator and watched the numbers light up like an exit sign. I don't need anything from his mouth that isn't silence. The night after, Our middle got sick at exchange. 1 minute he was fine, the next he went white and whispered I don't feel good, and then we were in the park bathroom with the rust flex sink and the single hand dryer that sounds like a jet trying to take off. She held his hair. I held the back of his neck the way my dad used to when I had a fever, thumb on one tendon, fingers on the other. When he was done shaking, he leaned against both of us at once like a creature with 3 legs. We moved in the small ways we still know how. She mouthed thank you in a mirror that someone had scratched the heart into with a key. I drove home with the window cracked in February and the dog pressed against the crate like he could smell it all and still loved us anyway. Mediation for the final orders happened in a windowless room in the courthouse basement where the paint peels in curls like orange rinds. Our lawyers went back and forth between rooms like bees. Numbers were written and crossed out, sentences drafted and softened and then sharpened again. I signed my name under paragraphs that spelled out things you shouldn't have to spell: who gets the house for now, who takes which holidays, who claims which dependent this year. The mediator had a jar of river stones on the table and told us to take one if we needed something to hold. I took one the size of a robin's egg and put it in my pocket and kept it there through everything else. The final hearing had the same tired flags, the same clock that runs 5 minutes fast. The judge looked at us over the top of his glasses and talked like he knew we were both listening for different words. He asked us if our marriage was irretrievably broken. The word caught in my throat like a dry vitamin. I said yes. She said yes. The sound of his stamp this time didn't feel like a gavel in a pillow. It felt like a door latch you knew would hold in the wind. Dissolution entered. Decree signed. Her last name will match her driver's license again. Mine will match the mailbox that needs a new hinge. In the hallway afterward, a man wheeled a cart with boxes of files past us and one fell off and cracked open and paper scattered like birds. I helped him tuck it all back in and he thanked me without looking up. On the app, the sentences got smaller. Arrived. On our way. He needs the blue inhaler. We're good at being practical with each other. It's the past tense that still ambushes me when I'm looking for the orange scissors. She texts about work at 2 in the morning sometimes because breaks are when the machines cool off. A photo of her wrist in a brace, a caption that says sprain, not break. I reply with a thumbs up and then ask if she needs me to take Saturday morning too. She says, thank you, and the dots appear and disappear at least 4 times before she sends it. Rosa added a new game to our son's rotation: tiny plastic people who climb stairs and slide down and climb again. He laughs in the same place every time, like the punchline still surprises him. I used 2 hours of respite to sit in a library under an air vent and filled out a job application online where every answer wants to be short and confident. I don't remember ever being both at once. The system asked for references and I typed in the names of people who have watched me make sandwiches for their kids and trusted me with their spare key and their dog. The boxes went green when I hit submit and I took a breath so big I tasted metal. The police called me back a week after we filed the report on the unknown number. We can't tell you it's him, the officer said, and then told me 3 things that made it very clear it was him. I put the case number on a sticky note and stuck it to the inside of the file box lid. The box is a living thing now. It eats paper and it grows. It has a handle I can wrap my hand around when my knees wobble. It has weight and I respect it. The dog got out once and went 3 doors down and stood on the sidewalk looking at the park like he had business there. When I whistled he ran back hard enough to skid on the salt and then sat like a soldier and let me clip the leash on with the sigh of a creature who knows what home means. Our oldest told me in the car that he feels less glass and more wood now. I still creak, he said, and smiled like he'd invented self-description. The envelope with the decree came in the mail on a Tuesday with the water bill and a coupon for tires. I held it by the corner and slid it out and read the words like I was reading them to someone who needed me to be calm. I put it in the box under the CPS letter and the polygraph and the officer's card. The rings, hers somewhere, mine in the ceramic bowl with the Canadian quarter, didn't make a sound. I waited for a sound anyway. None came. Just the fridge kicking on and the furnace deciding to believe the thermostat. We met at the park by the library again. She handed me a brown paper bag with a ziplock of cupcakes that are middle decorated with too many sprinkles and a note from our littlest that was mostly circles and one long line that looked like a road going off the page. She asked if she could walk them to the car because the wind was mean. We did it together, the way you carry a sofa in pieces. At the curb, our oldest hugged me twice, quickly, like he was worried the app would mark us down for emotion. She said she'd see me Friday and then she said my name the way you say a word you're not done practicing. I nodded and put my hand on the roof to steady myself though the ground was flat. Tonight, after bedtime, I'll take the trash out and set the can by the curb and it will look exactly the same as it did last year and nothing else will. The app will chime. The dog will do his rounds and end at my feet. Somewhere, a man whose last name I never learned will sit in an extended stay hotel with a microwave buzzing and think the word growth at himself like a spell. Somewhere, a woman I loved for half my life will tie her steel toe boots and choose a thing I can't see.